Mentally and physically, success can be defined as getting up one more time after you've been knocked down over and over and over again. I'm T.Wood, and this is Triumphant Moments, where I highlight significant moments in life that are far beyond the surface to inform, encourage, and inspire people to triumph over their life's challenges. With me today, I have President Aaron Walton, who is originally from Maxwell, Pennsylvania. He is currently the president of the Cheyney University here in Cheyney, Pennsylvania. President Walton earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in Speech Pathology and Audiology from California University of Pennsylvania and a Master's of Public Management from Carnegie Mellon University. He is the former Senior Vice President of Highmark Incorporated, one of the nation's leading healthcare providers. President Walton and his wife, Dr. Gloria M. Walton, have 2 lovely adult children and 2 grandchildren. Welcome, 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 my brother.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you, President Walton.
I feel welcomed.
Oh, man. Appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking that time, first and foremost, to even be here.
I'm honored.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're kind of going to go ahead and jump right into it. As I said before, I know there can't necessarily be a typical day, but for the sake of the show, what does a typical Monday through Friday morning look like for you? Is it push-ups, sit-ups, prayer, coffee? What does it look like?
All the above. I wake up probably around 6:30 every morning.
Yes, sir.
I do my morning devotion reading and prayer.
Okay.
And then I go downstairs and I get on the elliptical for about a half hour. Back in the day, I was a competitive runner.
Oh.
And I ran every morning at 4:30, from 4:30 to 5:30 for probably 25, 30 years. But now that I'm a little bit older,
Yeah, just a little bit.
I don't do that, but I try to keep myself in decent physical condition. So
Right.
that's how I start my day. And then I proceed to get dressed and ride over to Wawa's, where I get a cup of coffee for myself and my wife every morning, 7 days a week. Bring it back to her, give her coffee, leave it there because she's not up yet,
Okay.
and then go on to work and begin my day.
Mm.
And my day starts generally 8:15.
Okay.
Then it goes sometimes to 8:15,
Okay.
or it doesn't end.
Okay, so you got a consistent,
There's a pattern
Okay.
to my life. I think that you have to be intentional. And if you're intentional, there are things that you do as a matter of routine.
So, okay. Let me go ahead and warn the viewers right now. This is a good warning. There are going to be some jewels dropped during this particular episode. If you want to, go ahead and grab a pen, some paper, or just start this episode back over. President Walton's going to drop some jewels. I'm just giving a disclaimer so that they'll,
Well,
run get this
I
stuff
describe
right.
myself, I'm just a country boy.
Hey, we relate. We relate. Now, how would you describe your household life growing up in Maxwell, Pennsylvania? How would you describe your household or within the city?
Okay. Well, first of all, Maxwell was a mining town.
Okay.
So the entrance to the mine was probably 1,000 yards from where we lived.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and we all lived in company-sponsored houses, like be the modern day project.
Right.
But the company sponsored housing for the miners. And we were there. I was here the first 5 years of my life, but then my dad moved us to Brownsville, which is about 7 miles south of Maxwell.
Right.
Maxwell today, actually, as a little town, doesn't exist because we were right on the Monongahela River.
Right.
And they have dredged it so many times that where I lived is covered with water. So if I were to go back and try to remember now what was there was church, houses, families.
Come on,
it was a
man.
vibrant community.
Come on.
Nothing exists except in my memory. And it's very vivid because it was impressionable.
Wow.
You had the drama of folks getting drunk on Friday night and Saturday night, and
Don't tell the truth.
and folks running out with hot grease pans, chasing folks, and you know, those types of activities. And we had to stay in the house, and we had a rather large family. I'm the last of 12 kids.
Okay. I'm sorry. You know, I'm accustomed to hearing, 4, 5, maybe 6. President Walton, you just said 12.
I'm the last of 12.
Give us a breakdown. Okay, so how many boys, how many girls?
There were 7 girls and 5 boys.
Okay.
The first siblings were twin
Okay.
girls. They were the oldest.
Okay.
And then down to me, I was the last, and I was a boy. And my mother was pregnant probably most of her adult life until I came about, because there were a lot of kids. And we had a traditional family. We had a great life.
Okay.
You know, we lived, you know, in a coal mining town like everybody else, and everybody was poor, so, you know, we were not unique.
See?
So, you know, you didn't know what poor was because you lived. And I didn't want for anything.
Thank you. Thank you. It's something you said when you said that really stands out, because growing up, I didn't know that we were on assistance and this and that stuff. I was happy with the basic stuff that I had, and just hearing you say that. So you really did you feel poor?
Well, no, because you have no point of reference. We didn't have indoor facilities, so we went to an outhouse. We had a coal stove in the front room.
Okay.
We had a 3-room home that held 12 kids.
Right.
Boys in one room, girls in another room, and my parents in the other.
That's a pretty structured breakdown.
So it was structured.
Right.
But we all coexisted very, very well together because we weren't the only ones that had large families. There were many large families in the community.
Is it safe to say that y'all were probably the largest family, I'd imagine, just in that?
Actually, the next door neighbor had 13.
All right, what's going on? Okay. Whew.
They beat us by 1.
Love is in the air. The love was in the air back then. I tell you something that stands out here. Typically, you expect the oldest sibling to pretty much run the show. Now, you being the youngest, I'm guessing you pretty much had to fall in line and just whichever way they said go, you know, you just kind of went along with it, or was there different dynamics?
It was a different dynamic.
Okay.
First of all, I told my parents that they practiced the first 11 times until they got it right. So they should have started with me, and then they wouldn't have had to have other kids.
Come on.
But it wasn't that way. But no, I was always pretty much independent. We were taught to be independent, self-reliant,
Right.
etc. So there was not a lot of conflict, and I'm sure that I got a lot of pass-me-downs from my siblings.
Come on now.
But I didn't know that they were pass-me-downs, so it really didn't matter
That's what okay.
because you had what you had.
You were thankful regardless.
Sure, it was great.
Okay. Okay.
It was great.
If you had to think back, which I'm asking you to do, around that time, whether it be someone out, maybe a celebrity, or maybe within the home, who would you say was of a high influence to you in your youth, in your upbringing?
My father. My father probably, without a doubt, was the best role model a young man or a young woman could have, he along with my mother. My mother was a homemaker. My dad not only worked in the mines for 40 years, but he was a minister. So we had a very strict upbringing, and we were very, very tied to the church. So I can honestly say that some of his ideas, in retrospect, may have been old-fashioned,
Okay.
but they were right on point.
Ooh.
And what he shared with me about life and expectations of yourself and others have carried me through life. Because there was just an expectation of success. My dad had a 2nd grade education.
Come on.
My mother had an 8th grade education. And by the time my dad was 30, he had 5 businesses.
See, so it really spawns this question here. Because I've seen this a lot where our folks, maybe around that time, didn't necessarily have the big, educations that, I don't want to say fancy, but, the popular education and things of that sort. But they were so wise.
Came from Virginia. They had a different mentality, different work ethic. He and my mother both came from Virginia. And they came here real young and established themselves. And he was always a worker. And even during the Depression, he sold cosmetics to make sure his family had food to eat.
He sold cosmetics.
He most certainly, full of brush. He most certainly did. He did anything that was necessary. Plus, we had a little farm that make sure that we didn't suffer. So I can say, I've never had a hungry day because we raised most of our food.
The fact that did you recognize that he sold those items to do whatever it took to make sure that y'all were taken care of, or you just knew he just had?
No, I knew it later because don't forget, I was not here during the Depression.
Gotcha.
Some of my siblings were, but I wasn't. So they would tell me what he did and that he would get up and walk 20, 30 miles selling.
This is real.
That's what this is real. So you're talking about a role model? He spared nothing. And he was always there.
I tell you what, I want to shift gears here, and I want to make sure I quote it right. Now, you've expressed in the article how you came here to Cheyney University, that Cheyney University has changed your life, that it beats in your heart and courses through your veins. So while, just from my perspective, and seeing the leader that you are and that you've been, you're saying, on the other hand, no, Cheyney University is something special to me, special to you. Is there anything that stands out about Cheyney University that has been something that you're so passionate about? What makes you care so much?
Okay. I would say probably its history of being the first HBCU in America, founded in 1837.
Come on.
With the vision of some people that were Quakers that saw the plight of African Americans back at that time and said, we need to do something to educate this populace. And they actually began that process back there with a $10,000 bequeath. And that's how it all started. And here, 184 years later, we're still here. But probably what attracted me the most is the fact that we stand on the shoulders of people who had no idea of what Cheyney could become. And when I came to Cheyney, I didn't know what I was going to find. Even though I'd been on the Board of Governors for 12 years and actually in the governing body that governs Cheyney, until you live in a place, you don't know what it's like.
Come on now.
So when I got here, I saw that it was tremendously dysfunctional. It had every business problem I'd ever seen in my career all in one place. But I also still saw the potential. And as long as there's potential, there's opportunity.
I am not going to I told y'all was going to be some jewels and gems dropped. See, I want to make sure that all of my followers understand what you just said. See, you can be planted with a situation, and now you have an option. You can go into that situation based on its appearance, or you can see beyond that, its potential, or something that you would like it to become, or how you would like to be a part of it. Would you agree?
Absolutely. But I would also agree that I am not here by coincidence, but providence. And what I mean by that is I had no intention of working again when I retired in 2010 after 40 years in corporate. I was done working. But my association with the Board of Governors and the fact that we found ourselves without a president in 2017, and I happened to chair the HR component of the board.
Right.
I said, well, we need someone to go to Cheyney and work for 4 to 6 months till we do a search and get a president in.
Right.
And we need you to step off the board, resign, and go to Cheyney tomorrow.
So they were asking to pretty much to fill in the gap.
I had to fill in the gap for 4 to 6 months. As you can see, that was in June of 2018. and 17. I must not be a good math
I'm
student.
doing the numbers.
I'm not a good
President
math student, because this is now 2021, and I just committed to 3 more years.
Come on now.
Okay?
Come on now.
And that was not my plan, that was God's plan. I knew how long I wanted to stay, 4 to 6 months.
That is something, again, that I can't let slide up under the table. And see, with you saying that it was God's plan, here's something I'd like to throw out there. You still had to be willing to accept a plan that wasn't necessarily, that you particularly had laid out. Was that difficult? Was that challenging?
It was challenging in the moment
Okay.
because I'm in the 4th quarter of life. Okay?
Right.
You don't get overtime in this quarter.
Right.
So every minute counts. I had planned out what I wanted to do as a retiree. I had. But God laughs at our plans. That wasn't the plan for me. All through my career, I did significant planning. But God guided that process. The Bible says the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Okay? My steps have been ordered since I was a baby. And I know that. I have a tremendous responsibility that was placed on me by a minister friend that blessed me when I was 2 years old before he died. And he said, this young man will be blessed all the days of his life.
They spoke that over your life.
At 2 years old, I remember it as if it were right now. And guess what? I've had many struggles, many successes and failures, but I've been blessed my entire life. And Cheyney probably is the greatest blessing because I have an opportunity to impact lives that I will never know how much they were impacted.
Wow.
But I know that I have a part to play in their development.
When we take a look at life in general, okay? Had talks with my mom just growing up, and I just remember just little sayings here and there. You kind of let them go through one ear and out the other, but there's some things that just really stuck with me. And I was told, if you just continue to or if you're blessed to just continue to live life, breathe, see, hear, whatever it is that keeps you in existence here on this earth, at some point in time, you're going to run into a challenge, okay? Mm-hmm. And understanding that as long as we keep living, we'll always have our ups and downs, and we'll have our challenges. If you could just take some time out right now and just think, whether it be a part of your upbringing or something that you might have experienced in your life in general, family, or just anything that you can just think off the top of your head, or just something that stands out, what is something that you can remember that either you experienced that was challenging, or it happened and you found a way to cope with it and continue to press forward? Because clearly you press forward. You're here.
I was a product of the civil rights movement in the 60s. I went into corporate as a management trainee when there were no people of color in corporations. I started at the very bottom. And I faced many challenges because I was not necessarily accepted. But I look at challenges as opportunities. And one thing that I followed that my dad always told me, and it was similar to what Covey says. Covey says, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Ooh, please say that again.
Seek first to understand, then to be understood. It was always know what you know, and then get what someone else knows, and you'll have twice as much. So my philosophy was to know what I knew, but to get as much as I could from everybody else that worked there, so that I would have my knowledge plus theirs. And it propelled me through some very difficult situations because I was being educated at the time that I was growing.
President Walton, there had to have been, and this is for the listeners and the followers here, what was the mindset? If you could think back, what was the mindset that helped you keep going? Because people really do give up. They really just stop pursuing something that they may have a passion about or whatever it need be, simply because of the things that they continue to endure. What was your mindset? What was key in your mindset that kept you going.
Failure is not an option. That was my mindset from a little child up through now. Even though I have failed, it was still not an option that I chose. It was something that may have happened, but it wasn't the final say-so. I overcame the challenges. But I had many. You can't go through 70 plus years of life and not have challenges. But you can take those challenges and turn them into educational components that you can use later. So I have to say the subtotal of all the challenges I had in being on 35, 40 boards in my career, running organizations, etc., I found that the challenges that I experienced there, good and bad, prepared me to be at Cheyney. So I found out that God does not call the prepared, he prepares who he calls.
We need that to be said again, sir.
God does not call the prepared, he prepares who he calls. I was prepared to come to Cheyney for 70 years. Just like Moses had 80, I had 70. My job was to lead the children of Cheyney out of bondage. His was to lead the children of Israel out of captivity. I may not see the promised land, but we're on our way.
Come on now.
And Cheyney will arrive. They're on their way. Someone will be sitting in our spots 185 years from now.
You better believe it.
Talking about trees that they didn't plant.
You better believe
And they'll
it.
be enjoying the shade.
Just as similar as to what you said earlier about folks that might have made the sacrifices for where you are now.
They did.
Not knowing.
Oh, they had no idea.
Right.
No idea. But they did.
One thing that I want to make sure I point out here, and we tend to learn something and kind of hold that information with us, and then we die with it. With that said, do you feel like you were able to plug, different things that you learn, information, things of that such, into your kids, into your adult kids now? Do you feel that there was ever a challenge, just in the upbringing? Because I know me as a kid, man, my mom used to throw out there, I was in labor 20-some hours. I love you, Mom, by the way, okay? But she would remind me in a loving way. She would remind me, and it kind of helped me. All right, I'm listening. But for you, how was that experience, and just being able to take all that knowledge that you had and that wisdom and pass that on to your children?
Well, we had great conversations. Great. We've always been talkative. Even to this day, we probably talk, and they're adults, a couple times a week.
Okay.
And we always have. But what was instilled in me as a young person, I tried to instill in them. So one of them was discipline. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
We need discipline, we need parameters.
Right.
I set the parameters for my kids,
Wow.
period. My parents had a habit, they told me something one time.
I imagine that your parents had a creative way to make sure to get you to that point, or were you always?
No, they had a very creative way. It was called spare not the rod and spoil the child.
I wasn't going to say it.
That's what it was. That's what it was. And I realized because we were to go out and get our own brand of punishment.
Man.
Because we lived, we get those switches, and you better not bring in a flimsy switch.
Thank you.
You better bring in something that wasn't going to break.
I told y'all was going to get some gems. So, okay, I'm sorry, pulling back.
So I wasn't as abusive.
Oh, okay, right.
Generations are more sophisticated.
Yeah.
They knew what CYS is.
Yes, sir.
So we did a little bit more reasoning. But if you put the fear of God in your children, and you are their parent and not their friend, you don't have those problems. We had no identity crisis as to who was in charge. Mom and Dad are in charge, and they were always consistent. I never saw my dad and mother at odds about any situation or discussion in my entire life. And my kids don't see it, because even if I didn't agree, we agree in front of them. And then we might say something outside of their earshot.
Right.
That's my parents probably did too.
Right.
But if you ask mom, it's what did dad say. If you ask dad, it's what did mom say.
Talk about
That's simple.
consistency.
It's consistent.
Wow.
It's very consistent. So I'm very consistent. I'm not hard to read. What you see is what you get.
Yes, sir.
And if you can't handle, I'm okay with that.
What I love about that is you get to continually be your authentic self. You know what I'm saying?
I'm loving it here with these kids
Come on.
because I'm learning probably as much now as I learned through a lot of my life. Because they share things with you that you can't be shocked about. You have to listen, and you got to take it all in stride, and you got to be able to respond in a way that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
And that they can accept. So I get plenty of practice because I have lots of conversations with lots of our students.
With that said, then, out of all the experiences that you had in life, all the ups and downs, is there any wisdom that you would say stands out from your lifetime of experience? Is there any particular thing that stands out that you can share?
Main thing, listen. If you listen, you will learn a lot.
It's not easy, President Walton, for some people.
And be disciplined. Because before you start giving advice, you need to understand what you're talking about. And I share information, but I don't make decisions for these young people. You talk about options, you talk about courses of action, you talk about consequences, but you also talk about their choice. They have to make choice because they have to live with their choices.
That was my question. What makes that important? But it's because they have to live with that choice that they make.
Because I don't want them coming back and saying, you told me, you made me do that. No, you're not going to ever find me saying, I made you do anything. I suggested that here's a course of action.
Yes, sir.
And here are the likely results of those actions. But ultimately, it's like, it's free will. You get to choose what you want to do, and you also get to choose the consequences that go along with them.
That's
So if
real.
a bad decision, it's on you.
That's real. It almost feels like, I don't want to say a cop-out, but I can't think of the next best word for it, to be able to always use someone else when you can make your own decision, someone else as, I guess, the scapegoat.
Oh, absolutely.
See what I'm saying?
I also learned that the truth is somewhere down the middle.
Ooh.
In both young folks and adults. So I take very, very few conversations at face value because people always try to put forth their best face, and it's not always the accurate face. So I believe in listening but validating.
Come on. There's something that I created, and we're approaching the end here. There's something that I created called, well, just a phrase, called encouragement for free. Think about everything that we've talked about. Maybe even some things in your life, something that you might, a creed that you live by, something that might have been taught by your mother, father, or just amongst you and your siblings. What is some encouragement for free that you can leave right here with all of our followers and listeners right now?
Don't be judgmental. You may or may not have all of the facts or understand all the circumstances involved in decisions. So you can't judge a book by its cover, and that's a cliche. You can't determine what a person will become, because if someone had seen me at 5 years old with, a wood-burning stove, outhouse, no running water inside, etc., how could they have imagined that I would be the president of Cheyney University some 7 years? That wasn't in the cards. So what I say is everything is possible if you believe.
Well, President Walton, I really appreciate you coming here and taking our time again to be here on the show and be willing to potentially inspire or encourage some individuals. Really thank you for coming here on the show.
I thank you for inviting me.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Yes, sir. I wanted to add, though, I believe you're a part of Greek organization, or are you part of any Greek organizations?
I'm actually part of a couple Greek organizations.
Okay, okay.
Well, first, the one that's only meaningful is Kappa Alpha Psi. You know that.
Knew he was gonna do
You
it.
knew I was going there.
Ah,
And I saw that purple on you. I said, oh.
I don't know what you're talking
You
about.
got the wrong color of it. It's all good. And the Sigma Phi Boule, I remember that too.
Okay.
So,
Well,
two
with that being said, I thought I'd brighten up the room a little bit.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I'd brighten up the room a little bit.
You know what I say? We're all entitled to one mistake. We also have the opportunity to correct it. Now this, in your case, you can't de-pledge, so you're stuck with the mistake that you've made.
You know what? Okay, we're gonna end the show. You're getting off script. You wasn't supposed to say that, President Walton. You're getting off script. You know it's love.
It's all love.
As I've said before, I'll say it again, everyone. Sometimes in life, you must fail in order to succeed. But one thing must remain certain, that under no circumstances do you ever give up. It's Triumph for Most with T.Wood. I have my guy, President Walton.